Good afternoon, my name's Kelvin, and I'm going to be presenting our team's case on the Dublin Second Life case study. My group members today were Adeline Tay, Michelle Oisman, and Alice Pugliese. We're going to start off here with the principles of doing business in Second Life. Now, we felt that the main principle of doing business in Second Life was basically to make money. Now, how are we going to make money is we found that the main medium was through advertisements and through selling, purchasing, or renting land. So it was mainly land and it was mainly advertisements. Advertisements were the main source of revenue because consumers, or better yet, users of virtual life, in particular Dublin Virtual Life, find advertisements less intrusive, and they also find that the more that they actually looked at advertisements, the more likely they were to act on it. So the main thing was to retain people and to attract more people into the Dublin Second Life, or indeed into Second Life, the virtual world. Advertisements in the virtual world are more attractive, they're unusual, they're unique, and they're also less intrusive. That's one of the most important characteristics of the virtual world. As with any world, however, you need to establish a few rules and a few guidelines to ensure that the experiences of all the users are enjoyable and there is fair play, pretty much, in Second Life. Those are the fundamental principles of doing business there, and those are just to govern and control the environment that everyone's actually working in Second Life. Now, the business model that we think Virtual Dublin has adopted, Virtual Dublin, it's a simple model. It's designed to be photorealistic and to give a sense that you're actually being there. You're actually in Dublin itself. That's what it's all about. And hence, use the phrase, the home whilst you're away. Or indeed, you can put it on the flip side and say it's being away whilst you're actually at home. Given that we're in Australia here, for example, we were actually working in Dublin, or we were in virtual life in Dublin, whilst actually being in our home country. We find that the best way of actually integrating virtual life or virtual Dublin into the users themselves is to use emotions, and this adds a sense of belonging and a sense of community. And this is one of the biggest things in terms of consumer appeal or user appeal, is the appeal to their emotions, things that make you happy, things that make you feel like you're actually there. And because we find that advertisements in Dublin, or indeed in Second Life itself, are so immersed into the environment, we find people are more receptive of them, more understanding, and indeed they pay a lot more attention to them. Now, the business model of Virtual Dublin was based on the green dots phenomenon, and what it is, as we learned yesterday, was that it's to track and to measure and to aggregate and to display traffic numbers. What we mean by that is it's an analytical tool that's used to find the hotspots in Dublin, to find the hotspots in Second Life itself, and to display the traffic numbers in terms of visitors in, how long visitors are actually staying there, and where visitors are going. And what this does is this helps to assess whether users find something interesting in Second Life, whether they have invited more users to actually view it, whether they're users from different communities coming into Second Life, and this attracts different participants into the actual Second Life. And that's what we want Dublin Second Life to adopt a green dot phenomena that's going to help attract and analyze user behavior in the particular Dublin area. In terms of a business model, we feel that the Dublin business model is sustainable indeed, but there's still elements that we can improve on. What it is it serves as a virtual entertainment bank. So it's appealing. It appeals to the positive side of users' entertainment, and we identified a few sources of competitive advantage that we think Dublin has over its competitors. The first one is the affordable pricing of the different agreements that they have with different shops. You've got the houses, you've got the rent. And there's also flexibility in pricing. You can rent, you can lease, and there's a variety. Now, the variety of events that are happening on St. Patrick's Day in 2008, and that attracts a lot of different users and attracts a lot of attention into Dublin. And we feel that that's going to be one of the main drivers that we're going to particularly try to focus on, this because this adds Dublin's authenticity in terms of being there, in terms of being in Ireland, and it adds that element of real life in the virtual world that a lot of users actually seek whilst not actually being there. Again, I point out the phrase "a home whilst you're at home," or you can basically say being away whilst you're actually at home. On a continued note, we also identified a few sources of income that we think were relevant to this particular business model. The main one was obviously our top three here, which are with regard to actually renting and buying different properties or renting and buying different regions. That you've got the fixed pricing, which is flexible. You've got the fixed pricing, which is all flexible, and you've got the renting. You can choose between the two that you actually want to go with, and with that you get different ownership rights, the rights to sell, the rights to buy. Residents can also, and this is an extremely value-adding activity where there's actually intra-market transactions. We're not talking about transactions between the Second Life developers and the users. We're actually talking about Second Life to users, but from users to other users, and that's what adds the element of realism in Second Life that we think that is going to be really important as we move forward. In terms of the ownership rights, you've got things such as full regions, homestead regions, open spaces, and we think that technical support and advanced software application support is going to be really important if we're actually going to seek to gain user feedback and develop feedback in terms of how we can improve the Dublin area in particular. Bringing extended advertising campaigns into the virtual world, we're hoping that these things go viral, and how we can make them go viral is, say, a company like Chrysler wants to bring their advertisements, which they're doing in real life, in a certain square or something in a particular city. They can incorporate that into Dublin, and use the Dublin Second Life interface there and integrate that into one of the events that Dublin Second Life is actually going to be holding. And again, this brings the element of real life in the virtual world that we're going to be seeking to play on as we go along. Now, what goals should Dublin have for the future? We believe there's a few. The main thing is to promote Ireland as a destination, and how we're actually going to do that, it's quite simple. We need to find new ways to connect with today's web-savvy consumers. How we can do that is, for example, we need to integrate concepts of the Web 3.0 into Second Life. The interaction, the relationships, the facial expressions, the cosmetics, and all that sort of thing. That's what we're trying to put, and that's what we want to see in virtual life, because that adds a little bit of customizability, and you can actually put your values and you can portray yourself in the virtual realm. This we think should be a goal in terms of to achieve the sustainability of the Dublin Second Life, sustainability through innovation, however. The best ways we can achieve sustainability, well, first and foremost, it's simple. You've got to attract more people into Second Life. You've got to retain these people into Second Life. How we can do that? Well, we've got a few examples here that we might use. We can increase interactivity. You can use online games in virtual life to interact with different users and to disseminate information about Dublin Second Life itself through sponsored games, etc. We've got sponsored events by different organizations that can be run in virtual lives. Different things, perhaps even watching real-time games in virtual life, or real-time news in virtual life in your particular residence can be something that we can look at. We also need to allow avatars to co-produce their values. Now, what we mean here is we simply just need a way to incorporate feedback, user feedback, into the model of Second Life, and that can give Dublin a specific advantage in terms of what users want to see. If some of our users have actually been to Dublin, for example, in particular, they can provide some suggestions in which we can improve or develop Dublin Second Life. What we mean by stickiness is we need to find a way to keep people there. We need to find a way to keep us users there, us tech-savvy people there, to get us to log on again. That's what we're trying to do, and we can do that through different activities, different events, but we'll talk about this a bit later in the presentation. Establishing partnerships with sites such as Facebook. We found that one of the difficult things in terms of Dublin Second Life, or Second Life in particular, was to find people that we know. We could integrate Dublin Second Life, for example, with Facebook, and what we could do is we could put our Facebook username, our Facebook email address, and then we could get all the list of all the people who are actually in Dublin, all the hotspots that they've been to, and that can attract and retain people, because it can sort of give the element of what your friends are doing and what's hot and what's not. When we actually enter Dublin, we could have a small presentation in the form of a note that informs different users or visitors about the different events and the different calendars that are happening in Dublin, the destination, the hotspots, and the different trends. And obviously that's going to be changing, and that's going to be analytical and system based. That's basically to add more, to better understand our market, to add more to add more information, and to add more innovation, make it more sustainable, really. And in Dublin, in particular, we could move offline promotions from a Dublin perspective, or that are occurring in real life Dublin. We can move that to the virtual world and make it a little bit real, so that you can actually have that real life experience. In Dublin, it doesn't have that stale feel that you're really trying to avoid. We've also identified a few new sources of income that we think we can, that Dublin can adopt, and one of these is to hold different expos and showcase developer talents. And what we mean is picture this scenario: you've got an expo, an event running in Dublin Second Life. You've got different kiosks set up, and these different kiosks are showcasing different things. You've got one that's showcasing new technology that you're interested in. You've got different people from other sections in Second Life itself coming into Dublin to have a look at these expos. And what these can be is these can mainly focus on Irish expos, and they can focus on worldwide. So people can bring things from the offline world and bring them into Dublin Second Life, and they can pay a fee to actually have a stall, for example, at one of these expos. And then they can make a presentation, and what you can do is you can use that. You can just have a look at how many avatars are actually viewing that particular expo, and how many people are actually paying attention, and how many people are interested in. That can actually be a way that you can gain market potential, for example. That can be a source of income. It can support mixed mode buying behavior in terms of we can continue to use Dublin as a way of advertising, which is in an unintrusive way that can actually support offline purchasing. This is a model that's already used, but we can use our expos to sort of incorporate this. And the last one that we think might be a little bit invasive, actually using our green dot phenomenon to act as a market research mechanism. So, for example, with our expo scenarios, again, if we find particular users are interested in a particular expo or showing interest in a particular technology, we can actually sell this information to generate income and say, well, this is what users are interested in. These are the trends. These are this is what's happening in the virtual world, and maybe we can actually move things from the virtual world to the real world rather than vice versa. That pretty much draws a conclusion to the presentation that we had for you today in terms of what we found with our case study. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we really hope you've gained something from it here. So thanks for listening.